This is the place where penitents seek our pardon for their sins. Simon Mayo's Confessions Podcast.
Father Simon and the Radio 2 Festive Synod. I haven't told anyone of the incident I'm about to confess to, and even now, some 43 years later, I feel uneasy in relating this shameful episode to you. So we're really going back here. In the 1970s, I lived in a Derbyshire coal mining village, different times, which was surrounded by some beautiful countryside. Stereotypically, in a mining community, my family owned pigeons, ferrets, and a menagerie of other animals, including 3 whippets, but we had no flat caps. In order to exercise said whippets, my brother and I would walk them down the country lane opposite to where we lived, and one of us would hold them at the edge of a field, whilst the other stood a few hundred metres away, shaking a piece of fake fur for the whippets to race towards. This we repeated a few times, allowing them to display their natural instincts to chase after anything that was small and furry. The incident for which I am seeking your forgiveness took place in the week leading up to Christmas in 1974. It occurred one evening as I was returning from a long walk with the dogs, and I was within sight of my home, the house lights shining in the darkness. It was a very rural area, virtually no traffic, all was very quiet. Then I began to hear a noise. It was the faint sound of music playing in the distance. I stood for a while as the music gradually grew louder and louder until I realised where it was coming from. I looked into the distance towards the entrance of the lane, and I saw the brightly lit lorry dray belonging to the local round table, decked with fake snow, a couple of elves, and Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus dressed in their long red cloaks playing I Wish It Would Be Christmas Every Day on their record deck. Oh, what a lovely treat for the kiddies, I thought, looking on. Bobby has a beautiful smile.
Lovely, wistful thoughts.
Yes, yeah. I think she knows where we're going here. It's at this point I would like to appeal to your sense of understanding, Father Simon, and perhaps you'll appreciate that I couldn't have possibly foreseen that just at the point when I was about to secure the whippets to their leads, the lorry stopped for Mr. and Mrs. Santa to wave to the excited children in their homes, when a gust of wind picked up seemingly from nowhere and blew the hem of Mr. Santa's long fur-trimmed cloak over the edge of the lorry. My heart missed more than a few beats, even now as I write this, as I recall the vision of my 3 whippets, clearly thinking, "Rabbits!" tearing up the lane at a pace that Usain Bolt would have struggled to match, launching themselves at the white fur trim on Santa's cape that was billowing enticingly for them. What fun they seemed to be having as my shouted pleas for them to let go of Santa were drowned out by Roy Wood. The whippets set about Santa as... Not a line I've actually ever said before. As Mrs. Santa held on to her husband as though Christmas itself depended on it. Santa then inadvertently kicked over the record player as he lost his balance and clung on to his robes as the whippets ripped away at the fur trim. I started to sprint the 50 metres or so up the lane to retrieve the whippets when I saw them running back towards me, the hem of Santa's robe in their mouths. I stopped running and stood transfixed in the darkness. An attack on Santa seemed an unforgivable sin. Surely I would be presentless forever. Well, I'm relieved to report that Santa regained his balance and his composure, that one of the elves managed to find Mrs. Santa's hat, a little bit of saliva on it, and one of her boots amongst the fake snow, and the record deck was soon playing out the cheery Christmas tunes once more, so no harm was done. I told myself unconvincingly, apart from Father Christmas' tattered and battered hemline, now a few inches shorter than tradition dictates. But it's not too racy, really. Later in the evening, my dad returned from the pub where news of Santa's troubles had been regaled with much jollity by the parents who'd seen it with their kids. It appears that as the dogs were on the darker side of the dray, they hadn't been seen by anyone properly. Therefore, no one could point the finger at me. Father Simon, I seek forgiveness for not admitting to all concerned the real reason for Mr. and Mrs. Santa appearing to have a domestic on the back of the dray, and for probably giving the young kiddies nightmares after they saw Santa grappling with his missus and the dogs and then falling off the sleigh Chaotic scenes indeed in Derbyshire. Despite it being 43 years ago, I still feel a sense of shame when this time of year comes around. May I have your forgiveness, please? What a scene down the lanes in Derbyshire, in the mining village, as the Whippets set about Santa. I imagine that we're talking about fake fur, but it's the 70s, so who knows? But let's assume that it's fake fur, otherwise it all gets way too... just very, very complicated. Faux fur guaranteed.
Yeah.
No one had... No, I don't think that. Anyway, let's just assume that that's right. Yeah, what do you think then, Sister Bobby?
Well, full marks for Santa and Mrs. Santa going out with a record player as well, on vinyl. Roy Wood, how fantastic.
I know, imagine...
Over the
being on a
bumps.
lorry playing records, how's that going to work
That's
out?
fantastic. Anyway, so I love that. The thing is, of course, you should always keep your animals under control, but it's a kind of rural environment. There's no kind of real risk there, is there? So I can understand why you were just, leisurely walking along. I love this. I thought it's absolutely hilarious, and luckily no one was really harmed. So I'm going to say I'm actually full of festive spirit, Keith, tonight.
Is that right?
And it was 1974.
Yes.
And the dogs had fun and no real harm done. So you are forgiven.
OK, Novice, what do you make of that then?
Well, here you go. Wizard on vinyl, hurrah. But I'm not going to forgive you, Keith, and I'll tell you why. OK? 2 reasons. Whippets, the beasts were not under control at all. So it could have been a small dog, for instance. That's quite furry. They could easily have gone for that. A cat, did they go for those as well? They should have been on leads. They weren't. They raced off. They could have, we could have traumatised poor old... Father Christmas. And that's the real reason I'm not forgiving you, Keith. It's because it's not Santa Claus. Santa Claus is some American import. It's Father Christmas. Father and Mrs. Christmas. Absolutely. It is. It's always been Father Christmas. Always will. And originally in a green coat. Never mind a red one. We know where that one came from. Overseas. So, Keith, definitely not forgiven.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Superb. Well done, Nigel. Quite right, too.
Yeah.
If you go to White Hart Lane at Christmas, you'll find that Santa wears blue and white. So
well, that's okay. I'm happy with that.
I suspect the same is true at Everton.
Some fizzy drink.
Yes.
Anyway,
so,
Matthew.
well, Whippet's going for Santa. Really, this is nature running its course, isn't it? This is very much the circle of life.
Take him down!
Yes, absolutely. Off you go. Very much as they were brought up in the fields, the Whippets learned to take down Santa. So, this is very, very, very much responding to the primeval urges through the centuries. So let's say forgiven because it's Christmas. So yes, I'm going to forgive because the dogs just do what dogs do.
All right, so
bring down Santa.